And honestly, like having chatted with some of these different organizations that make diversity a priority at their company, like it's not a box they're trying to check. Like they recognize the value that diversity brings because of course you bring people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and they're going to bring different perspectives to the table. They didn't grow up in the same neighborhood as you or go through the same education track or the same career track. They probably came to your company through a completely different journey, a different path, and they've developed a different set of perspectives and a different set of skills along that way. And those perspectives and skills that they're going to apply to your business are only going to make your business stronger.
Welcome to the Audience Converter Podcast, the podcast for converting your audience from strangers to loyal fans. We dive deep and discuss how entrepreneurs, consultants, and coaches can level up their business to help more people in the world. Now here's your host, the creator of the audience conversion method, Kimberly Weitkamp.
Do you struggle with getting your message in front of the right people? I don't mean figuring out which of the many social media channels to be out there, but whenever you have a new offer or a new opportunity or even a new resource that you really want to share with your community, do you struggle with getting your community to actually open your emails? I have created a really awesome in-depth workshop where we'll go through exactly how you can use a welcome series. It's a series of 5 to 7 emails that people get when they first join your list that creates a curated customer experience and leads to higher engagement rates, higher conversion rates, and higher open and click rates. You can join me and grab your ticket at theaudienceconverter.com/workshop. If you've ever wanted to create an engaged community that you know is going to be more eager to open your messages, learn about your offerings, and of course, expand the audience in which see your offer and have the opportunity to invest their time, energy, resources, and money with you, this is definitely an option for you to get those welcome series written. So this 3-hour workshop will be a get it done style, training, time to write, and time to get feedback. Grab your ticket at theaudienceconverter.com/workshop. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Audience Converter Podcast. I'm Kimberly Weitkamp, your host, conversion copywriter, and marketing strategist. And today we're talking about how diversity and marketing can kind of play together. So it's a little bit of my realm and a little bit of somebody else's realm. And of course, as always, I have a wonderful guest to help me talk about these types of topics. So today I am very happy to introduce Kiirsten May, and I asked to make sure that was correct pronunciation before we hopped on. She is the co-owner of Uphouse, a marketing agency, and her business partner, Alex Verricchio, started in 2017 to support in-house marketers by helping them create stronger brands and more strategic marketing plans. And they like working with a wide network because it brings new perspectives to their work. Diversity of thought, opinions, and people make for better ideas, new perspectives, and of course, stronger business. They believe in this so strongly, they wrote a book about it. It's called The Proximity Paradox. And the idea is that the closer you are to a challenge, the harder it is to see the creative solutions that can solve it. And I can definitely attest to the fact that the closer you are to knowing your business, to knowing your products, to knowing your stuff, the harder it is to create your own marketing for it because you're too close to what you're doing. So Kiirsten, I'm so excited to have you on the show and welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to chatting about this topic.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where many of us realize that we should probably get a little help when creating our marketing, but it's kind of hard to articulate why that is, right? Mm-hmm. So I would just love to know, first off, Kiirsten is a fellow copywriting nerd, so that's pretty exciting to me. And, she approaches branding and marketing through the lens of purpose-told stories. So, Kiirsten, just tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started in this area, and how did you come to kind of really focus on not only branding and strategy, but also how diversity can really bring new perspectives and outside perspectives can help us in creating our own branding and marketing?
Okay, yeah. So I think, my background is in advertising agencies. I took a marketing and communications degree program. So I knew I wanted to work in an agency environment. I loved how fast-paced it was. I loved the creativity. And of course, I loved writing. And writing, of course, is a big part of marketing. And I think, by working in agencies, for me, it was really clear that the value that an agency brings to a client is that outside perspective. like in-house marketers are experts in their business. Like they know that product inside and out. They know those customer segments inside and out. They know what works in their space, what doesn't work in their space. They know their brand. But sometimes you can get mired in that knowledge, and you can also feel that burden of being the steward of your brand and your organization. So it can sometimes be challenging to push for out there ideas or even just see new and different ways to solve challenges, because your mind probably goes to what's worked in the past, or more importantly, what hasn't worked. And it can make you a little bit cautious when approaching your marketing. And of course, like, caution is not a great place for creativity or creative minds to operate. And so that's sort of, the value an agency brings to a client, is that group of people who are experts at marketing but are outside the business and maybe have had the chance to work in different industries and see inside different businesses, and then just bring that fresh perspective on maybe how a client can tackle a challenge. And that is not a relationship that is unique to marketing. Like, that relationship between like an insider and an outsider is a valuable relationship in all kinds of spaces, like no matter what the challenge you're trying to solve. And I always use the analogy, like, everyone has been in this situation where maybe you're struggling with something at work or in a relationship or in one of your hobbies, and you rant about it to a friend, and that friend, who maybe knows nothing about your challenge or the ins and outs of it, just says like, why don't you do this? And they'll offer up some like painfully obvious, simple solution that's like almost so obvious you never would have seen it yourself. And it's almost annoying because you're like, dang it, that would work perfectly. Why didn't I think of that? And it's like, how does that happen, right? Like, how can that random friend who knows nothing about your area of expertise just solve a challenge you've been banging your head against? And it's simply because they have that distance from the problem, that they've got that outside perspective that just lets them see a different way around it than you could when you're just like mired in the day-to-day. And so that's something that I've noticed just over the decade that I've been working in advertising agencies. And then that's also the concept that our book, The Proximity Paradox, is all about.
That is a really great story and example. And it's true, right? We rant about things to people who know nothing about what we do. I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and, I'll rant to people in my family about what's going on or the issues I'm dealing with. And, I still have to like re-explain what a particular term means because they have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's true, right? When you get that outside perspective, then it's kind of like, oh, they see things that we can't see. Because
Yes.
we're just so close. We know so much about what we know that we forget what other people don't know.
Yes. And I think now, like, something amazing that I've seen, like in Canada and the US, and I know this is happening around the world, is this is a concept that goes beyond the marketing department, and that organizations are trying to institutionalize across their business. And that is why you'll start to see more and more corporations with a diversity mandate. And honestly, like, having chatted with some of these different organizations that make diversity a priority at their company, like, it's not a box they're trying to check. Like, they recognize the value that diversity brings, because of course you bring people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and they're going to bring different perspectives to the table. They didn't grow up in the same neighborhood as you, or go through the same education track or the same career track. They probably came to your company through a completely different journey, a different path, and they've developed a different set of perspectives and a different set of skills along that way. And those perspectives and skills that they're going to apply to your business are only going to make your business stronger. And you're probably going to stop running up against the same old hurdles that you would have if you had the same old group of people. And by bringing new people to the table, you're going to find new and innovative ways to solve the challenges facing your business. And so I think this is just, it's an amazing time. If you're someone that maybe considers yourself like a diverse supplier or a diverse partner, there's, I think, just such an appetite for what you can bring to the table and your perspective. And it's just a wonderful time to really lean into that position and not to shelter it anymore, but to say like, yes, like, this is who I am. This is where I came from. And I'm going to step into the expertise that I have and own it and offer it to prospective clients.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite questions to get started with, right? Is what was your journey to doing what you're doing right now? And that's because there's kind of this perspective, I think, out there in the world that there's only one right way to do something, right?
Mhm.
There's one right way to do business. There's one right way to do marketing. There's one right way to do accounting. Whatever it is, you can fill in the blank. There's only one right way to do X. And part of my goal with this podcast is to bring several different perspectives to something. I've had people talk about mindset, about management, about marketing. Sometimes people are talking about the same types of things I talk about. Sometimes I've gotten people who can talk about, 4 different perspectives on writing your book and how to use it, because there is no right way to do it in my mind, right? There is no right way to become an entrepreneur. There is no right way to become a business owner. All of us have our own unique journeys. And through that process and through that path, we've created what we have now. And those experiences are incredibly valuable. And we bring that to everything we do, even though we may not be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned that mindset of finding the right way. I'm very much that kind of person. Like, I like to work efficiently. And so often if I'm going to do something like a new task or project, I try to research it as much as possible beforehand to find the right way or the efficient way to doing it. And I think that can, for me and for others, maybe who have a similar kind of personality type, can sometimes stop you from going for it, right? Because you're like, well, I don't want to waste my time or I don't want to fail. But honestly, like once you jump in and go for it, you'll find people got to the same place you are or had success from thousands of different approaches. And that, yeah, to your point, like there isn't a perfect way to do anything, especially now, like especially right now with the pandemic. Like no one knows the perfect way to run your business during the pandemic. Everyone is just trying things and figuring it out as they go along. And the people who said, like, I'm just going to sit on my hands and wait and see what happens and then decide, they might be the people who are getting left behind or who are struggling. Whereas the folks who said, like, well, there's value in what I have to offer, and I know what I offer, and I know where I can help my clients or prospects, and I'm just going to like jump in and figure it out as I go along and be authentic and just own what I know and I don't know, those people are doing extremely well.
That is so incredibly true, right? I mean, I had literally just started a new business. I had launched the Audience Converter podcast and the Audience Converter brand about a month before the pandemic, and all of the lockdowns happened. And, historically, live events have been really great for me. So I had just come back from a live event. I was about to start my post follow-up. And then like 2 days later, the entire country shut down along with like 2/3 of the world. And I was like, oh, okay, grand. What's going to happen now? And, I had a choice, right? I could sit and wait and hope something would come to me and I would figure out how to do it. And then I was like, you know what? Nobody really knows what to do right now. No one's really got a crystal ball as to what is or isn't going to work. So I am just going to go out there and see what's available and see what's out there and see what happens. And so I tried a bunch of different things. And you know what? I had one of my best years in business ever. So it's definitely this perspective that there must be a right way. But I do see your point as well about wanting to have at least a starting point. Like you don't want to have to start from square one, right? You don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure somebody else has done this type of thing before too. So you want to kind of have that starting point, but we don't want our starting points to hold us back from going past step one, right?
Yes, totally. And I think I heard you talking about your virtual event on one of the podcasts that you recorded earlier this year. And like, I love that you're going to go for it, because this is something we talk about in the book as well. And I see this in some clients where they can also get this analysis paralysis, and they feel like if they just do enough research and enough analysis, the right answer, like the kind of guaranteed success, will be made plain to them. But like the fact is, all your analysis is always based on the past. And like, there's no way, as in your exact case, Kimberly, that you can predict the future or what's going to happen that might like waylay all your best made plans. And so is it better to just like keep waiting and keep researching and keep analyzing with the hope that you can launch your like perfect product? Or is it better just to say like, well, here's what I know now, here's what I can control now. I know I can get a virtual event off the ground like fairly efficiently we're still going to have a great time. I'm going to meet a lot of great people. I'm going to provide a lot of value, and I'm going to learn a lot about the kind of event that I'd like to have. And then next year I can change it and iterate and improve it as I go along. Like, that's a lot more valuable than just waiting and researching, right? And I think for marketers and creative types, that's an important mindset to adopt. And I think it just comes like back to that fear of failure. And whenever you're in a creative space, like, you're always getting very vulnerable, right? Like, you're in a creative space, the work that you put out is a reflection of the way that you see the world. And of course, your concern is people are going to judge you for that. But it's just kind of getting past that space and just assuring yourself that there's other people out there in a similar position as you who are probably going to connect to what you have to say or what you have to make. And so it's just better to get it out there so you can start connecting rather than holding on to it and maybe keeping that information or that product from someone who needs it.
Absolutely. And that's the great perspective to adopt, right?
Yeah.
Instead of waiting and waiting and waiting and then keeping what you're doing from somebody who actually needs it, it's so important to just put it out there. I'm in the process right now, as of the time of this recording. We're about a week out from my first live event, and it's mind-boggling and nerve-wracking and all kinds of other fun adjectives, but I'm also learning a lot. And that's true, is that you want to be able to kind of see the values in what does work and what, even more importantly, doesn't work. And I think in this world in particular, in marketing, something else that happens, not only analysis paralysis, but I call it comparanoia. I've heard that term before, right? I'm going to compare myself to somebody who's got 100,000 people on their list and, say I'm a failure against them, which is just craziness, right? It's insane. And really, at the end of the day, what's important is that you go out there and do something. You go out there and get your message out there. You go out there and actually get yourself in front of the people they're looking for your help, right? They're honestly looking for what you do because that's what they need right now. So I love this idea of, building a brand and building a marketing strategy that really puts you out there and keeps that creative process going by getting some outside help.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit. Okay, we've talked about the book, and you've got it was called the proximity paradox is what I believe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I can just say, like, what you're probably wondering, like, what the heck is that title all about? And so that's a term that we use in the book that we coined. And it's the concept that the closer you are to a challenge, the harder it is to solve it. So,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, there you go. And it's paradoxical because you think like, hey, the closer I am to a challenge, the more of an expert I am, the longer I've been with it, the longer I've worked on it. Shouldn't that make it easier to solve? And in a lot of cases, the answer is no. And that's why it's a paradox. And, I think I mentioned this to you before. Our original title for the book was Don't Come Any Closer.
Yes, I did see that. And then it released like 2 seconds before the pandemic.
And so that was like our working title for like the year and a bit that it took us to write the manuscript. And when we got a publisher, they said like, that title doesn't make any sense. It's confusing. People aren't going to know what the topic is about. The title should be this term, the proximity paradox, because that's what your book is all about. That's what your title should be. But then of course, the book was released like the week following the pandemic. We actually had a launch party scheduled for it that we had to cancel. And we were just like kicking ourselves. We're like, dang it, that would have been the perfect title. But oh well, book 2, maybe.
Right? Live and learn, live and learn.
Yeah.
So with the proximity paradox, it's very true, right? The idea that the closer you are to something, the harder it is for you to understand it. Like, one of the things I tell my clients is the reason why you struggle with your copywriting is because you're too close to what you do. Yes, you know as much about anything as to what you're going to do and the benefits you're going to bring, but putting that into words for people to understand who are outside of your sphere are harder. And it's true, right? When I write my own copy, it takes like 4 to 5 times as long because I'm too close to it, right? So I love this idea of, that's why it's so valuable to bring in other people, to bring in diverse backgrounds, to bring in external help when building your business, because we are so close to what we do. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about how you get people into your world.
Yeah.
So with the proximity paradox, I know you guys have the book, which is amazing, and that's out there, right? It's out there and available, and the link will be in the show notes. But how do you build community at your company? How do you find that balance, right, between needing to bring in a lot of different perspectives, but also build a cohesive unit?
Yeah. So I think that community can happen in different layers. And for us, I think our community is like built around shared learning. I would say it was like a common theme in the relationships that we have, and kind of moving beyond a transactional relationship into something deeper. So we work with a lot of outside experts, different creative professionals to support us in our work. And all of those folks have something to share, and like a creative process to share, a technique to share. So we try to like facilitate between our staff and outside professionals, like as much of like lunch and learns and webinars and things as possible to kind of take advantage of some of those like tips and tricks that people develop along the way. We do that with our clients, not just like in onboarding, but also our clients are going to all sorts of cool events and getting all sorts of cool training that can make us stronger as staff and as a business. So we'll pick their brains whenever we can. And it's a fun kind of chance to talk about something other than maybe the projects that you're working on with them at the time. And then also, your associations. So we are members of the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. I know there's like a US counterpart to this. There's the Women's Business Enterprise. There's all sorts of different diverse supplier associations and alliances in whichever country that you're in. And those are amazing associations. They connect you to organizations that want to work with diverse suppliers like you. And then they also just give you a chance to share your experience and learn from folks who maybe have had a similar challenge or struggle as you have in developing their business. So, those are in every country around the world. And it's definitely good to look those up, maybe through your local chamber of commerce, and get connected to those organizations.
Yeah, I think definitely, one of my next question is usually going to be about, where do you meet your community and where do you meet your audience? And you've just listed off a bunch of different places, which is what people think of as more traditional business associations, right? And like the Chamber of Commerce, but they all have, there's so many now, right? There's a diverse offering out there. I know in the States there is, at least for one of them, there's like a process to go through to be certified as like a women-owned business, right? Or to be certified as a minority-owned business or something like that. And there's just so many different places for you to connect with people. And it really goes back to, who is your audience, knowing who your audience is first. And then from there, figuring out, well, where might they be hanging out? Where might they be where I could meet them and have a conversation, right? Because it all starts with a conversation.
Yeah. And I think probably, your listeners have their own businesses, and those businesses are built on a certain set of values. And if they were going to pick the clients that they would want to work with, they would pick clients who have a similar set of values. And so that's probably a good way to start your hunt for which associations you're going to invest your time in, or your membership dues, as a lot of them do have, and you have lots of options. So, you want to work with businesses who have a shared set of values. So maybe find some associations that cater to that. That would be a good place to start. So for us, it's diversity. We know by being part of these diversity networks, we're going to meet prospective clients who also value that outside perspective and diversity. So that's kind of where we focus our time.
Absolutely. And it's a great perspective to bring, right? Because there's just so many different ways to get in front of your people, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different platforms, so many different ways, and you really can't be on all of them. So you have to choose what is the best fit and what is the best investment, right? Because as you said, right, it's not just your time, resources, and dues. It's all of it together. And I think for a lot of people, there's this perspective that if it's not organic, then it's like not a win, right? Like if you're paying to get your message out there, then it's not as valuable or it's not as powerful. But at the end of the day, I would say every single form of marketing, whether it's social media, whether it's networking, whether it's associations, they all have a cost associated, both monetary and time. So there is no such thing as just pure organic, oh, it's not going to cost me anything. Because at the end of the day, it at least costs you your time to go out there and do all the different things that you need to do to really build a relationship.
And a lot of the times too, like some of these associations that do charge membership fees, those fees are put back into programming for like people coming up in the industry or the space, or like youth or scholarship programs. So it's like, it's a good place for your money to go. It's really going to help someone. So you can't really like feel bad about it in any way.
Well, and another way to look at it as well as a perspective is, okay, what is like the annual fee to be a member, right?
Yeah.
Break that down into 12 months.
Yeah.
Are you going to get at least one client out of that 12 months or one client out of the year of your membership how much is that client worth to you?
Absolutely.
Then, measure your return.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. You're right, because probably the value of that client is going to be like 10 times what your membership fees were, right?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I first got started, I had this perspective that like I couldn't afford to join all the different memberships and all the different things. And I was like, okay, I'll just do live events. Of course, live events had a really high price tag as well. But I was like, oh, well, that's okay though, right? So I was paying ridiculous money to go to live events. And I will say, after the pandemic hit and everything moved to virtual, my biggest returns have been like from joining masterminds or joining small group associations where you have a monthly fee. But, every time I have something on offer, they're like, oh, that sounds awesome. I'm going to go sign up. Or, oh, you know what? I know people who would be a great fit for that. Let me tell them about you. And so when you have somewhat of a barrier, I think it also increases the value for everybody in the room, for everybody in the group, because they realize all of you have invested something. It's more than just, I'm going to show up and get the free coffee. It's, I'm going to show up and actually invest in the future of this particular association and the members of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also another thing to keep in mind when you're going into some of these networks and associations is, well, one, you're going to get out what you put in. Like often they say your membership is just a ticket to the dance, but you still have to like get out on the dance floor, right? Like it's not enough just to hold your ticket. Like you got to put yourself out there and maybe approach someone and ask them if they'd like to go for a little spin. And then also it takes time, right? Like there's a lot of folks like competing for time and attention, particularly maybe if there's any prospective clients or business relationships in those networks. So, sometimes it takes a year of hitting the dance floor before you'll start to see those returns. But often those associations, particularly when there's an alignment of values, they have your back and they're going to want to see you succeed in that network, and they're going to advocate for you, and the connections and sort of the business outcomes will come for sure.
Well, I'm one of those people who doesn't need to like get an invite to the dance floor. I'm just going to go out there and tear it up and maybe drag somebody with me, which is something I definitely missed, right? Not being able to do that right now. But that's a great perspective also as well, right? It's not enough just to pay the base and do nothing, right? It's not enough to just kind of show up and say, hey, I'm me, I'm wonderful, you should all come work with me. Like it's an ongoing process, and it's something all of us need to really keep in mind. So we've talked about, a lot of really great topics here. We've talked about how diversity and getting an outsider's perspective can really help you build your brand and build your strategy around marketing. We've talked about, associations and the hidden gold in more traditional but non-traditional now with everybody online methods of connecting with people. So what would you say is like that first step somebody needs to take to start really getting an outside perspective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would start by characterizing the challenge that you want to solve. So sometimes that is a feat unto itself. If you can kind of come up with a synopsis for the challenge that you have. And then once you have that, that is sort of like a good nugget to bring to someone because you have a clear ask in maybe where you're looking for their help. And then, who do you go to? So you could ask someone with your same job title in a totally different industry. Like that is a good place. So if you're maybe a textile engineer at company A, maybe you just want to ask textile engineer in company Z for a virtual coffee. And
I love that you said Z.
My Canadian.
Proof she's Canadian, ladies and gentlemen.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, but they're not a competitor of yours. They're in a similar space, and maybe they've faced a similar challenge. So there is one way to get an outside perspective. Going maybe to a partner or collaborator that you work with in your business, maybe reaching out to someone in an industry association or a network that you're part of. But I say typically you get great results when you say, I'd like us to get together and just like swap challenges essentially, and come approach it with this position of learning, shared learning, that they have something to offer you, that you have something to offer them. And it feels dorky. Like it feels like you're asking like a friend for a play date. But I've done it and it works extremely well. Like you might have to message 4 or 5 people on LinkedIn, but I bet you one of those people is going to get back to you right away. And they'll be totally down to connect for a virtual coffee and just like share experiences. And you're going to learn something from that. And likely they're going to have a solution to your challenge that you didn't think of.
Absolutely. That's a very good perspective that, I think a lot of us have turned to virtual coffees here lately, especially with, hey, why don't we hop on a Zoom chat, right? But then we don't come with a goal in mind. We don't come with perspective. We just come with, oh, I need to meet more people. I guess this is how I'm going to do it now. So coming with a particular goal and the idea of let's exchange experiences, right? Let's swap challenges and see if together we can come up with solutions for each other. I love that approach. So Kiirsten, I want to say thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your wisdom with us, for giving us such great things to think about. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
So definitely like a great place to learn more about me and the book, and even some of the things that we talked about today, because we talk about this a lot. It would be to follow Uphouse's various social media platforms. So we've got a pretty good Instagram game, so that would be a great place to follow us at Uphouse Inc. And I understand that these various social handles will be posted in the show notes, so you can find them there. Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have to remember the really long URLs because, a lot of people also they listen to podcasts while washing the dishes, while driving the car, and they're not going to go look up a URL right now. So absolutely, you can find all of Uphouse Inc.'s social handles in the show notes. And of course, do check out proximityparadox.com, also in the show notes, to find out about their book and, learn a little bit more about that. So, Kiirsten, thank you again so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our chat.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, until next time, remember to keep calm and carry on.
Thanks for listening to the Audience Converter Podcast. For more information and important links about today's show or for access to our website, visit theaudienceconverter.com. Take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.